Okay, we're on Tazvavam base.
Yeah, maybe we should just read the Mishnah.
I'm a bit ready to read it. Oh, we're in the Mishnah?
We're not. We did the Mishnah already, but maybe we should read it anyway, just to familiarize ourselves again. Matzuk tzias b'derech. If you find figs on the road, afilu b'derech b'tzad tzadok tzias. But
that roadkill figs.
Yeah, remember we spoke about afilu b'tzad tzadok tzias, even if it's next to a field full of dried figs. And so too, if there's a fig tree inclining out over the highway, and you found underneath it figs, mutaris mishum gezel, they're permitted because of gezel. In other words, we don't regard them as subject to the halachos of theft, because the owner gives up on ever getting them back. Upturos mina ma'asros, and therefore they're exempt from ma'asros as well. Hazeisim v'charuvim, olives and carobs are chayav. They're chayav in trumas. They're chayav in gezel and in trumas ma'asros, because they don't get dirty and ruined when they fall on the ground. So therefore, the owner does not give up hope of getting them back. It's never half good. Matzo grogeres. If you find a date, you say, if most people already pressed their dates, chayev. So then it's chayev in trumas ma'asros, because it's considered to have been completed. Its activity has been completed. It was pressed into a cake, and you found it after it was completed, and therefore it's chayev in trumas ma'asros. If not, however, potter, then it's exempt because it was never completed under somebody's ownership. Then because it was never pressed, and therefore it's exempt from trumas ma'asros.
How do they find it? Is pressed cakes?
No, that's the Gemara's going to ask. That's the Gemara's going to ask. Well, you're supposed to when you find it, you should know what it is, pressed or not. Matzah pilchet vela. If you find actually pieces, large chunks of the cake, so be a duashem davar agomor. It's obviously coming from something which was completed. Hacharuvin carrots, achlo kintel rosh kargo. Before you gather them to the top of your roof, moy man lebehema. You would take them down to feed your animal. Bupater, and you're exempt from trumas ma'asros. Mivnei shemachzirus amosar, because you only take them down for your animal, and you're going to put back the rest afterwards. So every never became designated for human consumption. All right, the Gemara is going to discuss if that's exactly the case, but let's take that at face value for the time being. Okay, says Gemara, Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Yehuda said, Amar Rabbi Yehuda said, Lo maru ela b'derech. This is only between on the highway. Habeinu leben chavero, but it's between you and your friend. So low, then there is no yeush. Then you're not allowed to take it. But if you have two fields adjacent, or the short interruption between the two of them, and you find dates and carobs in the middle, dates and figs in the middle, so then you're not allowed to take them home with you. When do I say the owner doesn't give him hope we find the olives under the olive trees? For charuvin, the carobs, tachas charuvin under the carob trees. If you find the opposite, the olives under the carobs and the carobs under the olive trees, slow b'dah, in that case it is considered hefker because it's clearly has rolled away, and the owner gives up hope of ever giving it back in that case. Okay? It's out of his domain already. Says more further. Below batim,
is that even if it's just neighbor next to neighbor?
Yeah, it seems that way. What?
I think we did this.
Yeah, we did this. I said I was going back to the Mishnah. Ask more. I don't understand. If you find it in the field, it's really a question from before. You find it in the field that it's not pressed, because they don't press it. They press them and they take it home. It's out in the field. Places. Sharov Darsim Besodas, where most people do press out in the fields. There were such places. Rabbi Zera asked, still, you should be able to tell if it's pressed or not. right? Okay, maybe this is a place where people press out in the fields, but let's see if this one's pressed or not. How does that answer the question? Rabbi Yosef ben Shori Yisrael said a very interesting answer. Sometimes even the press dates roll out from underneath the pressing wheel, vidrusa. So therefore, luckily, it's considered pressed because it was in the pressing container, whatever it's called. However, nearest ain't shena drusa, doesn't look like it's pressed. So nonetheless, I consider those pressed in that case. Okay. So too, similarly, we have cases where a foot will step on something, and this is talking about, I guess it was pressed by the people who were walking back and forth. That's what the Kavanoki says. And drusa. Logically, that's not considered to be pressing because it wasn't pressed by a press, but rather it was just trampled on. So therefore, in that case, nears kedrusa, even though it looks like it was like it was pressed. So that's why the Mishnah says that not the Mishnah, right? Boom Barchia says it's talking about where most people press out in the fields. And we go by whether it is pressing has taken place en masse or not, because ultimately this specific date or fig, it's hard to tell if by looking at it what it is, because it could be even if it is pressed, it was pressed by trampling. It could be if it's not pressed not because it wasn't pressed, but because it wasn't in the right place in the press when the beam came down. So therefore, we have to understand what the circumstances are of the time of year in that location in general, rather than looking at the circumstances of this specific date or fig. Okay? Now, why is that important to us? Just to sum up, because if it already got through Gemar Malacha, it was already pressed, so then it's Chayav and Trumas Ma'asros. If it never went through Gemar Malacha, it was just Hefker beforehand, so then it's exempt for Trumas Ma'asros. Okay? Is that clear? Okay? Says more further. Are you staying for Marv? I have something for you. My briefcase. Take it now so you don't forget. It's about our favorite topic. All those papers at front. Top me. Okay. We sit on a committee together. I'm so glad to sit with him on the library committee of HTC. It's not such a big schus, believe me. Not because of him. No.
You're right there.
I think he can verify that it's not such a big schus. Says more further. Rabbi Elazar. Now here, this is a trick Gemara. Rabbi Elazar. You see where 2 dots now? I don't know if you have 2 dots. 2 dots with 2 dots at the bottom of Tes Vav on base. No 2 dots, right? Rabbi Elazar. It's really a tricky Gemara. Rabbi Elazar said, Hada de Tamar, that which we say, that we go after, we don't go after what it looks like, but rather after what's going on in the fields, is b'makom she'ein rov darsim b'sodos. Only when we don't have a rove. Now, what would you think? We don't have a rove, but what? What do we have? A miut. Well, if I was trying to trick you, what would I mean to say? We don't have a rove, but rather we have the opposite of miut. A kol. Kulam. An entirety. Okay, that's the trick in this Gemara. Where it's not a rove but a kol, where everybody presses out in the fields. Everybody presses out in the fields, right? Now, Rabbi Boon Bar Chia said we go after the majority. Most people press out in the fields, so we assume that this is pressed, and since this is pressed, it's Chayav and Trumas Ma'asros. Is Rabbi Boon? He argues. Rabbi Elazar says, I only follow what the reality. If everybody presses in the fields, not just a rove. Have a makom sherov Dorsi Masaros, or a place where only a majority presses out in the fields. Osana Miut, the minority who press in Hasidim Lidros, who only press when they get into the homes, Mitztarfin, they join to those who press in, to those who, the minority who going to press later in fields, who haven't pressed yet, join the minority who press in the homes, and therefore you don't have to assume that these dates or figs are chayim and trumas and maasros. Again, what does he say? He says, when do I say that mistoma they're chayim and trumas and maasros, where everybody presses their dates and figs out in the field? But if only a majority press their dates and figs out in the field, so therefore that means some of them don't press their dates and figs in the field, and besides that, some of them didn't get to it yet. So therefore, the two minorities combine to outweigh the majority, and then don't have to take trumas and maasros off these figs and dates.
It's assuming that the time span is different.
Right. Assuming that's staggered.
Yeah.
Assuming not everybody does one. Yeah, that's a legitimate assumption. That's a legitimate assumption. Not everybody presses it.
They will have the same time period.
Harvesting, yes. Pressing, not necessarily. No, they just have to dry them. They don't necessarily have to press them. They have to dry them right away. They don't have to press them right away. Okay?
Now, just to like a shmita with this shiur.
Yeah.
After a certain time.
That's different, right? Beer is all uniform because that's when there's nothing left for the animals out in the field. But that's a separate thing. Okay. So we're getting back to in the Mishnah. You don't have a header on this, but it's going out that the Gemara said that if you found carobs, if you have carobs, and the Mishnah said, the Mishnah said if you have carobs, which you're storing on your roof, and you took them down for your animal, so you're exempt, even though now you're down in your yard, where you should be chayv b'trumas u'maasros, you're exempt because you're going to take it back up, and you're just extemporaneously taking them down for your animal. Istanoi Tani, there's some Tanoim who said, it's fair, but even if you take them down to snack yourself, that's okay. It's not considered already permanent set in trumas u'maasros. However, why didn't mention for yourself? So this is not talking about it's not their occurrence for Talmidei Chacham to eat pears in a marketplace. Even in a chutzner, if it's a chutzner which is not private, it's not their occurrence for Talmidei Chacham to eat. Talmidei Chacham is not supposed to eat in public. That's the way it is. It's not considered their occurrence. Kahad Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Shimon have a ochel b'shuka, like Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Shimon was eating in the marketplace. Chamser Meir saw him. Amar Lezer said, "B'shuka tochil, you're eating in the marketplace. How could that be?" Ubatel garme, and he subjugated himself and stopped eating. Okay, so that's what it means. Even really, you might be taking it down to snack yourself, but the Mishnah doesn't approve of such behavior. So that's why the Mishnah phrased it that you're taking down not for yourself but for your animal. Okay? It's kind of a euphemism. They're also not supposed to. They're not being discussed in the Mishnah. But no, they're included. Right? They're the same idea. As long as they're just snacking, they can take off the roof.
They weren't afraid that they were going to take them down.
No, obviously it could be. We could be concerned about it, but we're not. You're right. We're not concerned about it. It's Kiddush, but we're not. Okay. Halacha Gimel. Now, until now, we haven't defined what's a chatzor which is mechayiv you meiser. The Rabbanan, if the fruit enters certain types of the courtyards, it's mechayiv you meiser. What are they? Rabbi Shmuel Omer chatzor atzuris, a Tyrian yard, which means that it's safe kept. They have watchmen on them. Shaken lishmar b'socha, because things are well preserved within them. Rabbi Akiva Omer kol she'echad posech ve'echad noel petura. As long as two people have the keys, I assume not from members of the same family, the courtyard is exempt because it's not considered to be private enough. Rabbi Chemi Omer kol she'ein adam bosh milecho b'tocha. Any yard where a person is not embarrassed to eat therein because it's somewhat enclosed, chayeves. It's interesting because people who don't eat in the streets, but they will eat in their cars.
Yeah.
So the interesting was Mana said we would say a car is kovel in Trumas and Ma'asros. It does fulfill all the parameters of chotzer. You can lock it. Somebody else can't open it, and you're not embarrassed to eat in it usually. So it could be it's mechayiv in Trumas and Ma'asros. Rabbi Yossi Omer. Rabbi Yossi says kol shenichnas la, any place you enter, vein ein omer mat mevakish, and nobody says, what are you doing here? In other words, if it's not your yard, you go in there, people don't say, what are you doing here? Tourists, so that's exempt because it's not considered to be a safe kept yard, because people can wander in, meander in at will. When you have 2 yards, one which is inner to the other, the inner one is chayev and Trumas Ma'asros, the outer one is exempt because people walk through it in order to get to the inner one, so therefore it's not private. Okay, let's go to more and test sign on base, please. Tanya, Rabbi Shmuel Omer. Rabbi Shmuel says, no, I don't have a head. You have a header. I don't.
Oh, yeah.
Ezu chotzer. What is the yard? It should be chotzer atzuris.
Right.
Okay, because that's what we're talking about. Anytime there's a watchman, sits on the front gate and watches it. Rabbi Shmuel Bar Yonasan said, we learned all the possible qualities of a yard from a house. How do we know that the bayis toivel dvar Torah, that a house makes something tevel dvar Torah, you're no longer allowed to snack? The Yosef says, Bi'arte HaKodesh min habayis. I took all my Ma'asros out from my house. Why it's min habayis? It's superfluous. I have to say no from your house. Where else did you have it? So it's telling us when the things that come chayiv and Trumas Ma'asros when they're in their house. Now, Shimon, Kumi Rabbi Yochanan. Shimon who used to learn it for Rabbi Yochanan, Omar alone, he said to us, Allah is like all the parameters in the Mishnah l'chumrah. If the yard meets any of the criteria mentioned in the Mishnah, it's considered to be mechayiv and Trumas Ma'asros by definition. Now that's one way of reading it. Shimon, the Pnei Moshe reads it not Shimon, but rather Shamun, that they heard. Okay, but the Kavanaki demonstrates that it works out easily where we assume that it's Shimon, and that Shimon said in Rabbi Yochanan this. Why don't we say the name Rabbi Yochanan? If Shimon said in front of Rabbi Yochanan, why don't we say name Rabbi Yochanan? The Leisek, because Rabbi Yochanan doesn't hold that way. In fact, it's not true. Milsei Rabbi Yochanan, please on Milsei. The words of Rabbi Yochanan argue on the words of Shimon. The time we learned to the Brisa, Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar. Omer Mishra Rabbi Akiva says name Rabbi Akiva. Kosher b'seich ve'echad noel. Anytime one guy opens and the other guy closes, so neither has full access, full control, I should say. At Petura, it's exempt from Trumas Ma'asros this yard. On this, Rabbi Akiva said, B'shnei shutfim v'lo b'shnei durim. It's talking about where there are 2 partners, each one impedes upon the other, not 2 individuals who live there, who both are tenants. Now that makes no sense, and one's going to attack this. Ma bin shutfim ma bin diur. What's it between a partner and a tenant? Kishem shashutfim memacha, just like a partner impedes upon the complete control of the other. Kach hadir memacha, so to the tenant impedes on the complete control of the other. Rabbi Yonah said, "Ba'bayis v'diuro masnis." Oh, that which it says that the tenant does not impede upon it from becoming chayiv and Trumas Ma'asros. It's when it's a ba'bayis, a landlord and a tenant. So it says Gemara, ba'bayis memacha ayidei diur. The ba'bayis can prevent the tenant from having free access. Vein diur memacha ayidei ba'bayis. The tenant cannot prevent the ba'bayis from having complete access. So therefore, in that case, I'd say that they're chayiv Trumas Ma'asros in such a yard. Olei Shimon kum Rabbi Yochanan Omar, concerning this, not concerning the other case. Shimon in front of Rabbi Yochanan said, Halachik Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar, the Rabbi Akiva. Halachik Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar argues on Rabbi Akiva, who said that Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar is the one who said that it has to do with Wait 1 second. I think I read that wrong. Halakha Rav Shimon Lazar, Rabbi Akiva. Halakha Shimon Lazar, doesn't argue, but rather will sell like Rabbi Akiva. That where one is a tenant, one is a landlord, then it's chayiv in Trumas Ma'asros, because the landlord exercised the ultimate right in that case. Rabbi Ami said, Hore Rabbi Yochanan Ilan Debei Rabbi Ami, Rabbi Yochanan Paschal, those of Rabbi Ami. Halakha Rav Shimon Lazar, Rabbi Akiva, halakha like Rav Shimon Lazar in his perspective named Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Yomer B'chulei.
So what do we say about two tenants? Since they don't...
Two tenants are exempt from Trumas Ma'asros in their courtyard. But a tenant and landlord, they do impede upon each other because they have equal rights.
But the landlord can impede on both.
Yeah, he's not here. So our premises landlord. Okay, that would be a separate case. We're talking about here either two tenants or the subsequent case Gemara says the landlord and a tenant. Yeah. Okay? So that was the case which Rabbi Yochanan said that Rabbi Yochanan Paschal Shimon Lazar, that he said that it has to do with partners and not with tenants and landlords. The thing is that Rambam does Paschal like Shimon said named Rabbi Yochanan. That a chotzer is determined by the minimum shiur according to each person, whether it's safeguarded or whether you're not embarrassed there and stuff like that. No matter which one works, it works and it's fine. That's a good definition of a chotzer. Okay? Says more further. You don't have a header here, do you? Rabbi Yehuda Omer Chulei. It says two courtyards, one more inner, one more outer. The inner one is chayiv. So it says more. Rabbi Ami, Rabbi Yochanan, Rabbi Ami. Oh, sorry, so I went back. Rabbi Barchia boy called Rabbi Zira. Asked for Rabbi Zira. Ma ba Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Yehuda losiv d'Rakiva. What is Rabbi Yehuda adding Rabbi Akiva? The same principles are true according to Rabbi Akiva. Says Mara, you're right. Amar Lev Lo Klum. He's not adding anything. What he's doing is explaining that a ramification of Rabbi Akiva, which has to do with impediment, is that if there are two courtyards, one within the other, so in the outer courtyard is impeded, but the inner court is unimpeded, and therefore by them, Trumas says, becomes a chiyuv, not by the outer courtyard. Okay? It says more further, Mishnah further. Hagagos Peturin. Oh, yeah, back to Mishnah, sorry. Yeah, the fourth wide line. Hagagos Peturim. The roofs are exempt. Even though they're behind a yard which is chayiv in Trumas Ma'asros, the roofs themselves are exempt. Anything on the roof is exempt. If you have a, can I make myself clear on that roof? Makes no difference. Doesn't matter. Roofs are not considered to be makom tashmish. A gatehouse or a portico, like a awning which is on supports but has no walls. And a porch. All these which front on a courtyard, they're like the courtyard which they front. Im chayev is chayev, and the courtyard which they front is chayev. These are chayev. If it's exempt, these are pturim as well. Okay? Hatzrifin, which are like igloo type huts, but instead of being made out of snow, because they didn't have snow in Bavel, what do you think they were made out of? Straw. Right. Okay? So who would stay in these trifin? Usually watchmen, not. They're made for watchmen out in the field. That was their purpose. Burgenin, which are also watch houses but more permanent. Va'alkitios. Alkitios are shelters. I was in camp, and it was the first camp I ever went to, the Y camp. So they had shelters. No, not even lean-tos. They're just roofs. Roofs to stand on when it rained. Didn't have bunks, it wasn't sleepaway camp. You had roofs to stand on when it rained. So that's a shelter. That's an in Aramaic. Summer is kaita. So al-kaita, that's a reminder of summer camp, right? Al-katios is a shelter which you stand on in the summer as opposed to an actual hut or house, right? P'turim, they're all exempt. They're not considered to be houses. A house is chayav trumas l'maisus. A bayis, a chotzer midrabbanan, but these have neither. They have no parameters.
That's not considered a house. Why is an umbrella considered a house?
Boy, you're in a sarcastic mood tonight. That was sarcastic comment number 2. There's the difference between an ohel and a bayis. Ohel is a tent. These are all tents. If you build one of these on Shabbos, you're chayav.
Oh, okay.
But it's not a bayis. Just like a tent is not chayav in trumas u'maisus. These are also not chayav in trumas u'maisus. Okay? Right, let me tell you a secret. Umbrellas aren't tents either. Yeah. What?
What's street in camp parlance is a bunk.
Right.
Right, right.
Because bunks and camps are like huts. That's right. All right. But in any event, sukkah's ginosar. The sukkah by ginosar is the Kinneret. Aval Pishesh Barichaim, even though they live there, it has a millstone, tiny golem, and has hands. The turret's exempt because it can only live there in the summer, really. Same thing, sukkah sayotzrim. The sukkah potters. Hapnim is chayav, is nonetheless the inner one is chayav because the potter does live there throughout the summer season. Whereas sukkah's ginos, I guess they really didn't live there. I guess it was only like an available place, but they didn't really live there. Hapnis chayav, if he has 2 sukkahs, one of which he lives in, the other which he sells his wares. So the inner one in which he lives is chayav in trumas u'maisus. The other one where he sells his wares is exempt. Rabbi Yosef Kol She'ena Diras Hachama V'Diras Takshomim, anything which is not used both in the summer and in the winter, the tourist is exempt from trumas u'maisus. Sukkahs Chag B'Chag. What about a sukkah on Sukkahs? Rabbi Yosef B'Chag, Rabbi says Chayim trumas u'maisus, Chayim Pocher Chachomim exempt you. Okay.
So if you brought
You couldn't snack on grain in your sukkah. That's right. Yeah. Okay. Back to the Gemara. What? Don't help. So take up trumas u'maisus. I'm Rabbi Elazar. No, ain't a mevarech al b'noit. Well, maybe because you make the bracha on the sitting there. According to the Gra, you can make a bracha on sitting there if you don't eat.
Okay.
I'm Rabbi Elazar. You see that, Rabbi Elazar? It's 3, 6, 7 lines up before the end of the narrow lines. On Ted Zayin on base. I'm Rabbi Elazar.
Okay.
I'm Rabbi Elazar. Begag mevutzer la'avir chotzer himas nisin. The truth is, our Mishnah we talk about where the roof is surrounded. Mevutzer means fortified, but here it means surrounded by a chotzer which is chayiv. So it says more. Wait a minute. If it's surrounded by a chotzer which is chayiv, we came and shivir and derech avir chotzer lo nitplu. He took them to the courtyard so they should become tevel. Now, they shouldn't be able to snack anymore. Do it for a courtyard. So 2 answers. Tipater ik Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda. Either going like Rabbi Yossi Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yossi Yehuda says when you go through a courtyard, it's not mechayiv you. Only if you stop there to intentionally eat there, they're not allowed to snack. But if you're going through a courtyard, it's not mechayiv you. So here you went through the courtyard to get to the roof, and that's okay. Ik Rabbi, or it could be even going like Rabbi. Rabbi holds if you go through a courtyard, you're chayiv. This is talking about where you're going through the courtyard in order to go to the mukta, to the drying location. In other words, when he went to the courtyard, he had no intent of eating them, so it wasn't even nigmar malachto yet. Because what do you intend to do? You intend to dry them as well. So therefore, it's not chaim trumas u'maisus until nigmar malachto, which is after they are dried. Okay? So this can be going like Rabbi Shua daitu lasas mem mukta. He wanted to dry them. Then when they got to the roof, nimlach shelo lasos, he decided not to dry them but to eat them. But even still, once they're on the roof, they're exempt from snacking. He wasn't tricking. Amar Rabbi Yavin. Rabbi Yavin said, "V'hu sheyobika garba al arba." We're talking about a case where the roof is 4 by 4 amos. If not, it's not considered to be a shus unto itself, and it's whatever it has, whatever status the courtyard has underneath it. This is not like Hilchos Shabbos, because Hilchos Shabbos, how large does it have to be in order to be considered unto itself? area.
3.3.
That's why you guys are going to need Erevin in modern metropolitan areas version 3. Soon to be a major motion picture. No. It's soon to be a bestseller. I hope. The 4x4 Tvachim.
Okay.
It's 4x4 Tvachim by Shabbos. Here it's 4x4 Amos because that's do not with Rishus, but rather with the significance of being a house or a roof. Okay, so it's Amos, not Tvachim in this case. Okay. Ma Bai saying a Tovel. Ad Shebo Arba Arba Afagak Eino Poiter doesn't exempt to Ad Shebo Arba Arba until it's 4x4. So it's the flip side of the Chiyuv, which is 4x4. The Ptur is 4x4 also. The Tani we learn to the Brisa Pai Shebo Arba Amos Arba Amos. A house which doesn't have 4x4 Amos. This is a Gemara which appears also in the Bavli and Sukkah. This Brisa. Patimina Mezuzah is exempt from having a mezuzah. Umina Mak is exempt from having a parapet. So it's not 4x4, which is on the roof. Mina Eruv, it doesn't have to be included in an Eruv. Veino Toivel and Meisers, if you bring food in it, the food doesn't become susceptible to being Meiser. It's most sukkahs, because it's well, not most, but some.
So for sukkah, you don't have a mezuzah because it's not terminate.
We're going to discuss that. Excuse me. We're going to discuss that. Veino also, so Ibur Le'ir, the halach is you can extend the city in any direction where the continuous house is every 72/3 amos. In terms of Tchum Shabbos, the Tchum only begins where the last house is. So as long as the house are within 72/3 amos of the last one, you can keep extending it. So here we don't say that because here 72/3, here the 72/3 amos are ending up in a house which is less than 4x4. The house is less by 4x4. It's not considered a house. So therefore, it doesn't extend the city in that direction. Okay? Somebody who took us of oath not to dwell in a house, he can dwell in this. This is a phone booth. If it's part of, if you have a courtyard which you're dividing up among the members, the owners or the houses, which, front on the courtyard, his house doesn't count because his house is less than 4x4 amos. So he doesn't get any area in the courtyard, the 4 amos in front of his house. This is not precise. Means it's not samus. It doesn't go permanently to a buyer who buys it within a walled city. Loch is a house in a walled city. After a year, the buyer gets to keep forever. It has no yovel. So this one's not like that. Rather, it goes out during yovel because it's not a house. So if it's not a house, what must it be? It must be a field. It's a field when it's go out in yovel, even if it's within a walled city. Okay. Can't get tummy with saras because it's not a house. Only house will get tummy. And the people who went out to war don't go back home because they just built a new hut. I have a header. This is a very interesting question. The owner of a burgin, we said the watchman in the burgin, in the little hut, watchman's hut, he can still snack. What about the owner? If the owner happens to come out and use the hut, can he still snack? Hear the question? Not the watchman, the owner. I mean, at the time of that, what you learned, base Sefer, base Talmud, a school. He's not the tenant is a renter. So he definitely be chayiv. According to this Gemara.
Yeah.
Here he's an employee.
Yeah.
I guess
We have
this is
Right.
more different than the question we asked.
Yeah.
Even though it's a little bit curved.
Yeah, because we had this sort of stuff before.
That's a good question. I don't know how to answer it.
So you sit on
It's less than 4 by 4 amos. No, it can't be less than 4 by 4 amos. It's more than 4 by 4 amos. Because then otherwise there'd be no havmina that the owner is chayiv.
Oh,
Right. It's impermanent. So the question is, that's the uniqueness here. It's more than 4 by 4, but not permanent. So what's its status?
okay.
Okay, that's what I think it is here.
Yeah, that's
And what difference does it make whether it's shomer or the owner?
Oh,
It's coming
no, it makes
No, the chiddush is that the shomer is bought there because it's not his, right? It's not made. Even that's not. I don't like that. You're right. It's not dwelling. The shaila is though, if you're an owner of a place which is 4 by 4 amos, even if it's not suitable for dwelling, is that by definition so it's going to be mechayiv to take off trumas and ma'asros? That's really what we're asking.
right.
It's of the proper dimensions. People don't use it to live there. Anybody else is exempt. What about the owner? For him, is it like a house? This will be that issue. Okay? So it says, Mar mimad tani beis sefer beis talmud toivel the sefer l'mishanim. Now what you learned that the beis sefer and the beis talmud, the yeshivas, prevents the sofer who's teaching chumash, Mishan who's teaching mishnah for meeting, avolo hacherim, but not others. Or the Amra is teaching us shein toivlin l'bala borganin, that the owner of the borganin, just like the sofer or Mishan, doesn't own the school, right? He might own the school. He doesn't live in the school necessarily, but nonetheless, it's mechayiv and metrumas and ma'asros. So you see, the same thing can be true about the borganin. Okay, he does own the school, the sofer or the mishanim. He doesn't live there. So nonetheless, I say I say he's chayiv. So here, the owner of the borganin, when he comes there, is chayiv as well. That's what it will boil down to. Okay, that's comparison. Yeah, logic is difficult. I mean, that's why there's a whole kind of a nucky here. But it's not bad. It's not bad. Okay? Sukkah Sachag. Spare you, spare me. Sukkah Sachag. Sukkah Sachag v'chag. You don't have a header. We're getting back to Sukkah. Tana Rebbe Yomer. Rebbe says, Arba Amas Havah B'Shein Shom Arba Tfanos. A Sukkah, as long as it's 4 by 4 amos, even if it doesn't have 4 walls, it's okay. How many walls does Sukkah need? 2 and some odd. Yeah, 2 and change. B'Shem Omer Arba Tfanos need 4 walls. I'll be change them Arba Amos. You need 4 walls, you don't need 4 amos. What's the minimum share of a Sukkah? That's height. Width. That's according to Rebbe. Oh boy. 7 by 7 tvachim. Total blank? 7 by 7 tvachim. Okay. Okay. Rabbi Omer, Arba was Arba Tfanos. Rabbi says you need both. You need 4 walls and 4 amos. Tani v'china Rabbi Mechayim b'mezuzah beiruf. What now? He has Tanya and Kavanaki. You do not have Tanya, right? You have just v'chein. I'm going to use that. Okay. Tanya and he throws an eruv also. A sukkah according to Rabbi Yehuda, according to this, is chayev in mezuzah and an eruv. Now this is not in the Bavli. According to this, it's a brisa. I don't like it. I'm going to assume it's not a brisa. You'll understand why in a minute. Mistabra makes sense to say Rabbi Yehuda yoydel in the Rabbanim. Now, the way the Kavanok explains it, the way the Olam Farshim learn it, is Rabbi Yehuda will be moeded to the other rabbis, to Rebbe and to Rabbi Shimon. But if you remember, in the Bavli, when it says A is moeded to B, what does it really mean?
The other way around?
Yeah, the B is moeded A. We had that once before. Where it says A is moeded to B, it means B is moeded to A. That's where the Yerushalmi speaks. So what it really means is The other rabbis concede to Rabbi Yehuda. What does it mean the other rabbis concede to Rabbi Yehuda? That a sukkah daled al daled without phonos is certainly mechayev and trumas ma'asros. Okay? Now I'm not sure one tights it up like that. One second. No, I don't want to tighten it up like that. I want to say it differently. The same thing. Rabbi Yehuda concedes to those. Rabbi Yehuda, those Rabbanan concede to him that such a sukkah is kosher. Sukkah which has 4 walls and four walls and 4 amos. Rabbanan Ilain lo yodin Rabbi Yehuda. But Rabbi Yehuda is not going to concede to these rabbis. In other words, he's not going to be matir sukkah unless it has both components, both 4x4 amos and 4 walls. One is not enough. So the other rabbis concede to Rabbi Yehuda because they all hold. The underlying svara here is everybody holds in this opinion, in this machlokas. Everybody sukkah diras kfar boina. It's better to have a strong structure as a sukkah, not a diras harai, not a extemporary, off the cuff temporary structure. They all concede to that. Just the question of the other rabbis hold that diras kfar is either 4 walls or 4x4 amos. You don't need both. But if you have both, it's very good. You need both. You need both 4x4 amos and 4 walls. Both components are necessary. If you have missing either one of them, sukkah's no good. Okay? That's good. That makes sense. Okay. Rabbi Yehuda, however, you should know, Rabbi Yehuda, now we're going to say Rabbi Yehuda argues now, which said previously, that which the Brisa said before, the Gemara is going to renege on that. That which the Kavanaki calls a Brisa. I don't think it's a Brisa. Now the Yerushalmi is going to argue on that. Rabbi Yehuda holds Avapi sheish ba'arba amos va'arba tfanos shebetura min hamezuzah ve'ena tevelsim. Oh, it can't be going to Rabbi Yehuda because he said in the Mishnah. No, I'm wrong. I was going to say that Rabbi Yehuda himself concedes that a sukkah, even a sukkah of his shiur, is exempt from trumas ma'asros. But that's nonsense, because the Mishnah itself, you take a look back at the Mishnah said Rabbi Yehuda is mechayev and trumas ma'asros in the sukkah. You remarked on that in the Mishnah, right? So what it means to say is, the other Tanoim hold, arba amos v'arba tfonos, even though the other Tanoim hold, even if it's got 4 walls and it's got 4 amos, it's a kosher sukkah, but still she p'tur min hamezuzah ve'ena tevelos l'ma'asros. Since it remains a sukkah, it's exempt from mezuzah, and therefore it's exempt from trumas ma'asros as well. So the way the Gemara reads it again, the other rabbis concede to Rabbi Yehuda that a sukkah 4x4 amos and with 4 walls is kosher. Rabbi Yehuda does not concede to the other rabbis, and he holds a sukkah which is only 4x4 walls or 4x4 amos is not kosher. The other rabbis, although they concede to Rabbi Yehuda in the point that 4x4 plus 4x4 is better, but they do not concede that it's chayiv in trumas ma'asros or mechayev you in mezuzah. That they do not concede, because the sukkah by definition is not a house. The way he brings it down Kavanaki, it's not called a house because it doesn't have a roof. And only that which has a roof has a house. And therefore they're exempt. Ve'ena tevelos l'ma'asros does not chayiv in mezuzah and ma'asros. Okay, that's good. Is a roof. Right. Right. By the way, you should know, just in Lumdis, concerning the Irvin and modern metropolitan areas, part 3 is coming out soon, edition 3. It's coming out soon. In Lumdis is also a central difference between mezuzah and sukkah. And that in a sukkah, Tzuras Pesach doesn't work. You need to have 4 walls, right? And even according to us, 2 walls is not enough. I mean, two. You can't have. You need to have 2 full walls. Tzuras Pesach only works on the 3rd wall, not on the 2 first walls, and even they're not for the whole wall. So therefore, the parameters for mezuzah and for sukkah are different, because for mezuzah, all you need is Tzuras Pesach. Without any walls, it's still going to be chayiv in mezuzah. Whereas by sukkah, it's the exact opposite. You can't, not the exact opposite, but you can't have walls made of Tzuras Pesach. Am I making myself clear at all? Okay. By Rabbanan Kataina. You know why sukkah is exempt from mezuzah? Because the parameters are not the same. The parameters for mezuzah are Tzuras Pesach. By sukkah, door frame. 2 side posts and a lintel. If sukkah were to have the parameters of mezuzah, that means that you should be able to build a sukkah out of 4 Tzuras Pesach, because that's mechayiv in mezuzah. Why should it not be mechayiv you in? No, you don't get it.
Yeah, but what about people build their sukkah out of wood?
They need to have walls. They can't just have. They can't just have door frames. But if the parameters are the same as the mezuzah, then door frames would be sufficient. Just 4 door frames. So since we see it's not sufficient, we see the parameters are not the same. So that's why something can be good for mezuzah, but not good for sukkah. So that the opposite can be true as well. That which is good for sukkah is not necessarily going to be chayiv in mezuzah. Yeah. Right. Anything which has 4 walls is chayiv. Right. Well, that makes sense. But even Koran Abiyut, I assume you'd have to have Koran Abiyut Tzuras Pesach on one of the walls. The thing is, we don't. It's not clear why we don't have mezuzahs on Eruvin, a regular citywide Eruv. Every Tzuras Pesach should have an Eruv. Should have mezuzah. The reason why they don't is because we assume the Goyim would take them away and deface them, so they don't put them up. But hypothetically, they should be there.
Maybe because it's Rishus. Oh, it's not Rishus.
No,
it's Rishus. Sure. Okay. All right. On we go. Taina shemetz b'chater. You have a fig tree which is standing in your yard. Ochel achas achas. You can eat one by one. The fig tree is in your yard, so it should be chayiv. Nonetheless, the rabbi said you can eat one by one. You know why? Because it's not considered to be kamar malach until you make a mini miruach. So you make a little pile of it. So even though it's in your yard, you need yard plus Gemar Malach. There's no Gemar Malach. You need one by one. If however you put together a bunch in your hand, you're chayiv. That's like a mini miruach, mini pile. It's Gemar Malach and it's chayiv. You get the right to hold one in your right hand, one in your left hand, and one in your mouth, like a juggler. Okay. Ola Rosha. What happens if you go up to the top of the tree? No, then it's fine. As much as you want, because miruach has to be on ground-based miruach. They make it pile in your hand, perhaps, but on the ground, not up in the tree. Okay, Tanya, we learned. Nosin lo shows lefatseya. Oh, sorry, to the Gemara. Tani, right? You see that?
Also, maybe when you're on top of the tree, you're more private.
Maybe. Tani. Nosin lo shows lefatseya ribor rishoner shnir shlishas. It's interesting kula here. The Kavanagh says talking about olives, which is pashtus. I mean, it's possible to explain something about dates also, but with something about olives, they used to crack open in order to put in salt or something and make them taste good. Because now we pickle olives. So the old days, even they didn't pickle them; they had to crack them open in order to put on some spices so you make them taste good. So you give them the first, the second, and the third. What does it mean? If you cracked open the first, then you gather another one, even though you're holding both at the same time. Since the first was already cracked, it no longer is mitzvah to the next one to make a mini pile. It doesn't work that way. How many times do you have to crack it? 3 times, because that's how much you crack in order to make it suitable to eat. Once it's cracked 3 times, even though you're holding your hand when you pick up the other one, it's not considered to be a mini pile because the first one is considered like be water under the bridge. It's already out of the ball game. It was cracked cracking is already takes it out from being part and parcel of his pile. It's really completely ready to eat. Okay? Rabbi Yonah B'Shem Rabbi Zira said, "Shim likin es hashniya b'sol kadei shows rishona." If you collected the second one before you finish cracking the first one, then nit blushtem, then they're tevil. In other words, you have to crack the first one 3 times in order to be exempt when you pick up the second one, because then they're not considered to form a pile together. Rabbi Yirmiyah boy. Rabbi Yirmiyah asks the following question. Classic Rabbi Yirmiyah question. Zorak is a shana mal mi'avir asora. So you're playing jacks with your with jacks, right? What's that called? What's the? Yeah, playing jacks with your dates. So you throw up one date, and then you pick up another date. Now you have, and the other one is coming down, right? It's on its way down. It went above 10, now it's on its way down in the trajectory. So I consider to be holding one date or holding 2 dates. Okay, you're holding one, you threw it up, picked up another one. Now your hand is like this, but you want to go quickly like that. But the other one, gravity is already pushing it down. So maybe it's already considered being in your hand. Yeah. Yes. That's when they kicked him out of the base medrash for. Where he had 1 foot in the 50 amos, 1 foot outside 50 amos, and 1 above Basri. Okay? So Rabbi boy, sorry, you threw it up, right? The law speak later the matter me'avir, so it hasn't yet come in down. Actually, it's a shneir by the time picked up the second one. Need blush name, are they both the same, are they both tevel or not? And that makes it worse, that makes it more likely it's high. Yeah, it could be that this is a more reasonable question. Okay? That's true. Rabbi Shimon, Tanya, Rabbi Lezer Shimon, you get sholosh b'yamino, 3 in your right hand, sholosh b'yamino, 3 in your left hand, with sholosh b'fivin, 3 in your mouth. Only if you have 9, if you only have more than 9, if you have 10, I guess carrots bar, it's Kabbalist, or was the son of Rabbi Shimon. Only you have 10 corresponding to the 10 spheros. You actually chayiv and trumas and meisos. Rabbi Shimon says more. I did the Ava Achlon because he was an eater. He was very fat. More on Bava Metzia says he was very fat. Rabbi Shimon. So Mishar Garmei Kane, he reckoned for him what's considered to be a pile. Chshivas only if you have 10, not if you only have 9. 3. It seems that he brings down here the Kavanoki that there was that he was the psikta that says that once he was in his youth he was a porter because he was very, very strong. Then he learned a lot of Torah and became weak. Then he became it seems when he went into the cave, learned the Torah, became weak. Then when he came out again, he became not flat. Well, he ate a lot. Yeah, he ate a lot again. Yeah, flatly. Yeah, the carrot. Sure. I don't know. So in any event, Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Shimon, Azal Gabi Rabbi Yossi went to visit Rabbi Yossi. Beila Kunya, it was in Beila Kunya. Chamib was his father-in-law. Have a muzagle. So Rabbi Yossi was pouring for him cups. Fushasi, and Rabbi Lezer Shimon, he downed it. Have a muzagle fushasi. Poured him again, and he drank again. Do you have both? Do you have only once? You never tried. Amalei, so Rabbi Yossi said, "Lo shamas minavuch." Didn't you hear from your father? Ligmos, because how much you have to swallow a cup down in. In other words, you're not supposed to swallow it down all at once. Yeah, you did it 2 cups, one after the other. Amalei, so Rabbi Lezer, Rabbi Shimon said, "Kemoshe achas." When the halacha is, when you dilute the wine in room temperature water, then you can drink it down in 1 shot. When it's only in 2 shots, but if it's diluted in colder water, then 2 shots. If it's diluted in hot water, sholosh, in 3 shots. Not says Rabbi Lezer Shimon. I don't know if you know what, I take that back. I don't know if he's saying yours was mixed in lukewarm water. I'm not sure if that's what he meant to say. Could be that the stress is on the next statement, which is all these shiurim, lo b'yein chashuna does do with your wine, which is very good. For lo b'kais chashukata, know with your cup, which is very small. For lo b'kreis hishiruchava, know with my stomach, which is very large. What he's saying is that these halachas of etiquette are relative, right? So it depends who you are, what you're drinking from, and where your capacity is. Okay? Vav Rabbi Shua ben Korcha Tzavik. Rabbi Shimon Korcha is the shadow of Rabbi Elazar ben Shimon. Challah bar Chamer, vinegar the son of wine. Because although it's not brought down here, it's more down more bar Mitzia, that Rabbi Elazar ben Shimon had a job, which was to find all the Gandovim and give them over to the king. Seems up he Ruach HaKodesh you would find them. So Rabbi Shimon Korcha said, well, this rotten thing to do, how can you give over Jews? Even if they're Gandovim, how can you give them over to government? Amalei, so he said, Lamat Tzavach li came. Why didn't you shine me? I have no choice. The government's making me do it. So Amalei, so Rabbi Shimon Korcha said, Adar Akis, until you go, in other words, you should have gone, but Zatlach Lukaya and fled to Lukaya, which is either Chutzar or somewhere nearby, and you wouldn't have had to give over Jewish souls to the government. Amalei said, V'lav Kotzi Ksuchin Kisachti, am I not cutting down repulsive thorns? In other words, there are thorns on our side anyway. Why do you want to keep them around? Amar Leis, Rabbi Shimon said, "V'lo haya l'cha leilech l'sof olam." Don't you think it would have been better for you to go to the end of the world, l'aniach, and to l'aniach ba'al keren, shogeg the kotzav, to allow Kodesh Baruch Hu, the master of the orchard, to cut his own thorns? Okay, in other words, it's not your business to do. He should let Hashem do it. Okay. Ala l'rosha. You don't have a header, right? This goes back to the Mishnah, yeah. He goes to the top of a tree, and he eats on top of a tree without being, without having, he's allowed to snack. What happens if he's on top of the tree and the fruit rolls out of his hand? Can you take it back to the top of the tree and eat it, snack on it? Like we learned over there, we haven't, way back at the beginning of the Masechta, there's halacha, that if you brought figs from the field to eat in a yard which is not safe kept, which is okay to eat in, snack in, and you forgot to brought them into your house, you can take them back into the yard and eat them. Do I say the same thing about over here also? You can take them back, but you can take it back into the tree or not. So it says a very lumdish answer, very interesting answer. There where you take them out of the house, they'll be in an exempt place. But here, if you take them back to the tree, it's a chayav place. In other words, the tree is really chayav, because the tree is where? In the yard. Yeah. Why are you exempt in the tree? Because it's not good. We didn't consider it to be Gemar Malacha yet. Right? Because in order to be Gemar Malacha, you have to be standing on the ground. It's not Gemar Malacha up in the tree. But if it fell off the tree and got to the ground, so then that's really in a place of Gemar Malacha. You want to take it back to the top of the tree, that's not leaving the yard, and therefore you can't be exempt just by taking it back to the top of the tree. That tree is also Makom Chiyuv. And your whole head wasn't Nigmar Malachton. That fell off when the fruit fell down. Okay? You shouldn't fall off too. Says what?
So if you took it into the house,
then for sure you couldn't take it back out. Can never take anything back from the house. Right, same principle. Ma'adaimilo, what is similar to this? If you're standing at the top of a fig tree, what's the status? It's like standing in the city or standing in the field. What are we talking about? This is going like the following. Aloha way back from Masechta Peah. You're standing in the city. You're saying, I know my workers out in the field are going to forget a sheaf, which I left in a certain place where they're not going to find it. I don't want them to. I don't want to be considered shikha. Also, if they forgot it, it should be hareza shikha. It is shikha. Tough. Why? Because he's in the city. His remembrance can only work, says the Gemara, if he was also in the field. I know the word is going to forget a sheep in a certain place, when they forgot it, it's not shikha. It's not forgetfulness. Why? Or it doesn't belong to the poor people. Why? The Chesiv says, in the field you should forget and not in the city. So in other words, when is it shikha? When you forget when you're in the field. And you're remembered in the field. But when you're in the city, it doesn't help the fact that you remember. You have to, because you have to remember out in the field. So the thing is, what the Gemara means to say is that a guy on top of a tree, in a field, he remembers he has a sheep somewhere in the field, which we're just going to forget, so it's not considered shikha. So we see that the top of a tree in a field is like the field, not like somewhere else. So to here, if he takes the fruit back to the top of the tree, after filling the yard, it's like in the yard, not somewhere else, and there remains chayiv and trumas and maisos. Okay, let's go back to the Mishnah another time. Gevit shenatu b'choter. This is the bottom of Yud Tet Zayin on base. The last line. Gevit shenatu b'choter. You have a grapevine which is planted in a courtyard. Noitos kolesh could take the entire cluster and eat it. V'chein berimon, so too in a pomegranate. V'chein b'avatel, so too in a melon. Divrei Rabbi Tarfon. I keep remembering an amazing thing. We got to eat the grapes one by one. Uporate berimon, you can't take a bite of pomegranate. You have to take seed by seed by seed. Everyone take more than one seed. It's like a mini miruach. It's going to be chayiv and trumas and ma'asros. So to it gets like a watermelon. It's very large, so you can't take the whole thing as one. You got to take slice by slice by slice. Otherwise, it's chayiv and trumas and ma'asros. Okay, back to Yud Zayin and base now. We learned over there. You were eating a cluster of grapes. You went out came from your field into your courtyard. Field is exempt, courtyard is chayiv. Rabbi Elazar says you can't finish the cluster. Rabbi Yerushalmi you can't finish the cluster. Amar Rabbi Zira, Amar Rabbi Chia, Barva, B'Shem Rabbi Yochanan. Without taking up trumas and ma'asros, it wasn't tight. Amar Rabbi Zira, Amar Rabbi Chia, Barva, B'Shem Rabbi Yochanan, Od Rabbi Tarfon, Rabbi Eliezer. Either Rabbi Tarfon holds like Rabbi Eliezer, that just like over there you can finish the cluster, so too here you can eat the cluster. Why? Because by the cluster, just like over there you began the cluster outside, and that's not good. So there, it's not. There's no. Well, let me read the next line first. Oh, Rabbi Tarfon Ovad, it should be Akitas Eshkol Tchiloso. He regards the snipping off the cluster off the tree as its beginning. So it's one of these two things. Either that Rabbi Tarfon or Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Elazar is in other words, as long as the cluster is in your hand, from a time when it's exempt into a time when it's chayiv, it remains potter. So just like over there, you brought it in your hand from outside the yard into the yard, it's potter. So it's here, when you took it off the tree, it was potter. It remained in your hand. It continues to be potter while you're eating it. That's where it could be Rabbi Tarfon Tzvara. Or it could be Rabbi Tarfon Tzvara is somewhat different, that when you take it off the tree, it's not Gemar Malacha yet. Because that's just the beginning. And then you ate it right away. So Gemar Malacha is some subsequent time. It's a very fine difference, whether it's looking at the hand or the fact that you just took it off the tree. But the bottom line is that you're not. That's why you could eat an entire cluster. Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Yasser, B'Shem Yochanan, Omer. They both said the Rabbi Tarfon, Rabbi Eliezer. The Rabbi Tarfon is going like Rabbi Eliezer. Either Rabbi Tarfon is going like Rabbi Eliezer, or Rabbi Tarfon Ovad Achila Sheish Bo Shtayim Shlosh Achilos Ka'Achila Achas. Or Rabbi Tarfon holds that even though a cluster has 2 or 3 eatings in it, 2 or 3 servings, nonetheless it's one large serving. It's not considered to be like a mini miruach, as if you gather them together. My time to Rabbi Elazar. What's the logic of Rabbi Elazar? Mishum shehischil beheter, because you started when it was mutter. You started outside your field. Let's just go 2 more lines. Tanya Rabbi Nelson, Lo Rabbi Elazar Mishum shehischil beheter. It's not as easy because you start when it's mutter. El Rabbi Elazar Omer Yamti Chietzi Shabbos or Chietzi Chutz Chutz V'Yigmor. While you're in the field, the yard, you're not allowed to eat it. It doesn't make a kavur, but in the yard you're not allowed to snack. So if you're eating a cluster, when you come into the yard, you got to stop. You can only continue once you leave the yard. So it's not like Rabbi Tarfon at all, because like Rabbi Tarfon, you can eat the cluster in the yard. According to Rabbi Elazar, all means you can exit the yard again and continue eating, but in the yard you can't eat it. So too by Shabbos go there too. There too, Rabbi Elazar holds, if you eat in the cluster right before Shabbos, you can stop and continue after Shabbos. But on Shabbos you can't eat at all. So it is not like Rabbi Tarfon. We'll stop here for this evening.